They are eradicating the satanic field. They are eradicating the Saturnian throne in Washington, District of Columbia. They are eradicating all of the blood ritualistic nonsense that is keyed into the echelons of power, whether it's the Vatican or the crowns of Europe, what have you. What is behind, meaning to say, what's behind Ukraine.
Prove to me that you are alive.
A lot of people are divided, hate Trump, love Trump, and then we obviously know how the systems works. We obviously know there are donors and sponsors and this and that. What do you feel and what do you think about Trump? Is he really here draining the swamp, as he says? Is he on our side, or is this yet another very good scheme?
So I will end it by throwing all of my currency in on this, all, whatever that is worth, my currency, reputation, all of it, by just saying, let's just truly end this speculation. It doesn't require interpretation. It doesn't require speculation. It is factuality in harsh technicolor. You can simply read the presidential, the EPOs, the executive presidential orders. Read them. Read them. They're there. They are eradicating the satanic field. They are eradicating the Saturnian throne in Washington, District of Columbia. They are eradicating all of the blood ritualistic nonsense that is keyed into the echelons of power, whether it's the Vatican or the crowns of Europe, what have you. What is behind, meaning to say, what's behind Ukraine, which is pure Molochite worship, Canaanite ritualism, satanic ritualism, blood rites. That is why the sigil of Moloch is the logo adopted by Ukraine. Well, do the fucking math. It's not complicated when you pull your head out of your blinkered ass and actually see what's there. So ritual, satanic, Saturnian, Canaanite, ritualistic, Molochite, Babylonian, helter-skelter is what Ukraine is all about.
Mhm.
And what is behind Ukraine is the populist, liberal, intellectual, Zionist, Jesuitical, European populist mind, liberal mind, and taxpayers. Mind fucked into not understanding reality, but that's the big wellspring of consensus of what is right and what is wrong, and Putin's evil, and Zelensky's a fucking hero because he
Yeah.
looks like Fidel Castro 2.0 in his dumb little uniform. So those optics are all Vatican iconoclasticism. That is all orchestrated theater. So Zelensky is a turgid, little, rabid, homosexual piece of shit.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with being homosexual, but it is something wrong with it when you're presented as being an honorable warlord, fighting for the survival of your poor, beleaguered people. It's disgusting. The footage, film footage I've got of Zelensky that I play at my private audience touring and lectures would make you howl with laughter. In any event, here's what he is. He's a bad actor, a very bad one, and either he'll be executed with a bullet through the heart, or he'll be culled slightly into ignominy in very, very soon, because Putin has won. And Putin and Trump have both been in full alliance. Don't believe the dialectic that's played out there. Even Trump and Putin play into the dialectic in as much as they are both coming, in a sense, from the Luciferian side of the equation, which
Mhm.
is the false light, empirical power, dominion, money,
Mhm.
control, but they are not the satanic echelon. The Satanist and the Luciferian are completely different animals. The Luciferians are not the problem. The Luciferians are not the same thing as the Satanists. Lucifer was not Satan. Okay? Satan, in that sense, is the snake blood. Lucifer was the bird blood, and one is the opposite of the other. The Jesuits and the Babylonian priesthood have scrambled the hemispheres of the understanding of the Luciferian and the satanic to make them the same equation, so that they can create a Hegelian dialectic, a fog of war in the mind, in the civilizational mind. But please understand, Lucifer, Lucis, fallen angel, God's most beloved, all of that, very, very different to this Abaddon, Baphomet, Molokite creature that emerges through the bowels of Hades. And what is the seminal difference between a Luciferian and a Satanist? That becomes the credible question. And the answer to that is a Luciferian does not conduct blood rites. A Satanist does. A Satanist is a vampire, a cannibal, a flesh-eating, baby-eating, adrenochrome harvesting, blood-gargling, diabolical, demonic entity masquerading as a human being, conducting business in the banks, in the portals of power, in the Vatican, and so on, and having infiltrated the echelon of leadership. Well, leadership is largely construed around that game. But please don't mistake that with divine right to rule and the ancient god kings who were good. They were the custodians of humanity, the titans that, and that became the Donald Trumps and the Vladimir Putins are of that order. They are good. They are of the light in that sense. But it's not the point. The point is that humanity, you and I, the angelic human, is the preeminent universal and galactic force. Once we have reconstituted our telephone to God, once we have recohered to the divine immanent flame of the divine, the angelic human stands supreme. So the Luciferian, the satanic, the demonic, and the angelic will always take the knee to the fully actualized angelic human.
Wow, I really appreciate that you mentioned Ukraine. Now, obviously I was born and raised in Ukraine. It's crazy how I'm picking up on your wave, because today only I posted a video about this whole charade that the so-called European leaders and Zelensky and all of them are playing out. Again, this unoriginal script, that they tend to ritualistically repeat, man. And for many years, this is important to me, because for many years I've been fighting for the people in Ukraine, for my people, for your people, because the people are suffering, first of all. And to anyone that doesn't know, and I'll send it to you also, Sasha, that I had on this podcast a woman that kind of ran the Ukrainian media in mid 90s, and she was the one to bring Zelensky into the Ukrainian show business. And in 2019, when she spoke out, she was warning people, look, the war is coming. She went to Turkey, and Zelensky personally put sanctions on her and her 3 children. So since 2020, she hasn't been able to leave Turkey. She's on a witness protection program. So I'm very glad that you say that. So Trump, because there's a lot of divide with Trump.
Can I stop you there? Where is this individual, this woman?
So Snezhana Yegorova, basically, and the interview is really cool because she talks about how all the billions, the USAID, whatever money, and all these billions were, put in Ukraine. I was there myself, still a kid in the mid 90s, and I remember that the people were robbed while all of these billions were coming into the country to program Western Ukraine into what they wanted us to be.
My question was,
I know, I got it. So Snezhana Yegorova, she's in Turkey right now.
Got it. And are you in touch with her?
Yeah, all the time. That's a dear friend, just like you are. Again, she was one of the first people to build the Ukrainian media. Ethnically, we're Slavs. Like, if you look at the bloodline, there's no difference between Ukrainian and Russia. This is a divide
Well,
and
exactly.
conquer.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she was also from the Russian speaking side of Ukraine. So she grew up speaking Russian. Her parents, everything was normal. When she came to Kiev and she realized what the West, quote unquote, these cockroach elites are doing to the population, she kind of caught on to it when the Maidan was going on in 2014. But she spoke out. She's like you. She's vocal.
I would
I
love to meet her if that could be arranged.
Definitely. And I also had a one journalist from Ukraine. He's the only journalist to have paperwork over 2,000 corruption cases on people that are next to Zelensky and people that left after 2014, like, Yatsenyuk and all of these other people. So I'm super happy that you mentioned Ukraine, and it's a lot to think about what you said about Trump. But I trust your heart, so I will definitely consider what you said.
But it's not
Um,
just my heart. I have direct lines to that
right,
family from different angles over 25 years, literally going back
nice.
that long, to 1999, 2000. So I've heard the conversations come back to me through my circle of close friends over 25 years who are very interwoven with the Trump family. And so, well before he was in line for political office or presidency, I knew who he was. I always thought he was a bit of an oaf, to be honest with you. And I never watched any of that Apprentice stuff. I didn't like the kind of grandiose style of the man. Now, of course, I completely relish it. I absolutely love watching him being so bombastic and throwing cluster grenades into the status quo consistently. But, it's very difficult to get a handle or a fix on Donald Trump. And it's very, very difficult to do so. And I think that's because he is a very ambiguous, enigmatic guy in the way that he has construed his life and his standing. He's not done it in the orthodox way. It's been very unorthodox. But I can say the same thing about my life. It's very, very unorthodox, which is why I do somewhat understand the attacks that come at me for being a Vatican agent or, fringe Illuminati or, whatever. I get that piece. I
Mm,
get how people can't compute why and I do what I do and how I do what I do and so on and so forth. One could say the same thing looking
mhm,
at the life and times of Donald Trump. But again, it's so important to read the executive presidential orders and to also understand uh, where he comes from, what he was saying 25, 30 years ago, 35
mhm,
years ago. He's on the record for having said how he interplayed with, Martin Luther King back in the day and with the Black Power movement, how he was involved with Nelson Mandela back in the day when he was just a rich tycoon in New York, how he has extended his kindness, a tremendous amount of kindness to different communities over the years. He's blunt, he's got terrible syntax, he's not a great communicator, but the record does stand up to scrutiny. When it starts to get a bit controversial and a bit, it's to do with the kind of sexual stuff. And I've not been a billionaire tycoon with a private jet being able to fuck 12 Russian hookers, with impunity on a weekend, whilst I'm also, dallying with hip hop artists and
mhm,
political leaders. That's not my thing. I don't know if I had the money and the private jet and the access, would
mhm,
I have also allowed myself to, like him, to have been led by base appetite? Well, the argument is probably I would. I'm a sensualist. I'm a Taurian. I'm a sensualist. I can be led into that, I think. but I think that there's a reason why life has prohibited me from, being able to exercise my appetites with impunity. In Trump's case, he didn't have those restraints on him, and so maybe he was knocking around with teenage girls in the 1970s and the 80s. I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't condemn the man for it. Because I don't believe for 1 second he's a pedophile, not for 1 second do I. And I've also seen some of those Jane Doe accounts. But I know from my own personal record that I have Jane Does, 2 that I can cite.
Prove to me that you are alive.
Who have come out in videos against me, which we know have been financed and construed to destroy the work I do. And these Jane Does also swear on camera that they participate, in tribunals, that they've witnessed me participating in ritual child sacrifice or pedophilia. So I know I've had that stuff leveled at me. Now, if it ever got to a certain point, I could pick up a stick if any of that stuff became credible or looked as though it was being taken seriously. I would drag it into a courtroom, and through discovery, I'd be able to prove very easily that I'm innocent, and I'd put these people behind bars. And I would do that, absolutely, and throw away the key. But Donald Trump, I don't know that he is innocent of some of these more scurrilous charges of being led by base appetite. It wouldn't surprise me. But again, I wouldn't condemn a man for that. Certainly not at the age of 79, years after. I read this morning that Steve Tyler of Aerosmith, who's an iconic entertainer and genius, shock poet, beautiful soul, fascinating human being, and he's now being retroactively prosecuted using a drummed up act that has been together 40 years after the fact, and some idiotic female is saying that he groomed her at 15 when he was 25. Well, grow the fuck up. When I was 16, 17 years old, we were banging 15-year-old girls left, right, and center. Not me, because I was stuck in a war, but my generation.
Right.
I know that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this, at the time in the 1970s, when Polanski and Jack Nicholson and whoever else were, in with 17, 18-year-old girls in jacuzzis in Hollywood, it was done. It was a fog of marijuana and free love and no holds barred, and the rules, fell away. So I also know about my own sexual encounters when I was younger with older people moving in. I don't regard them as pedophiles. I don't regard those stories as being seismic, trauma patterns in my life. I grew the fuck up is what I did. And we should all take these things. Obviously, there's a difference between that and real pernicious, evil pedophilia and that kind of predating on very young children is disgusting and despicable. Possibly Vladimir Putin's latest legal action, which is to have all pedophiles chemically castrated. Possibly that is a good thing. So again, just to round off on Trump, can't speak to that stuff in the past. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that he is accused of that we know is nonsense. And we now know that the Clintons, I knew the Clintons, what they were up to 20 years ago, or 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I was talking to close friends of the Clintons many years ago. I was telling Harvey Weinstein and his family when he was being set up, because I knew he was being set up. And then it all came down the pike, and he gets turned into the show trial. And Harvey Weinstein is not the bad guy, was never the bad guy. You want to know who the bad guys are in Hollywood? I could name them. That's not my gig. I'm not going to do it because I'm too busy building the new earth and doing diplomacy and things like that. But I fucking know who these people are, because I was in that network, watching it, seeing what was happening when I was on the ground in North Africa, in the Middle East 20-25 years ago, when I bailed on Hollywood and Monaco and the celebrity world in 1999. Throughout the 90s, I know what I know. I know what I saw. I know who was involved. I know the big big cheeses in the entertainment industry who I befriended over the years, good people who ended up confiding in me about who were the blood drinkers and who were not. So that stuff is, Donald Trump is the victim, the innocent victim of unbearable, unbelievable maligning, slander, libel, defamation, and scurrilous and patently evil accusations. And the weight that he carries, despite, and the fact that he continues to wield the sword of St. Michael in many different arenas where it really matters, in terms of taking down the deep state, in terms of ending child trafficking, and so on and so forth, in terms of ending the IRS, which is what he's also moving against. So is he just orchestrating a new dominion? Yes, to some extent that's true. But like I said, it's a reclamation from the satanic to the Luciferic. And I am very good about moving into a Luciferic dominion for a transitional period of time before the new earth fully unfolds like a lotus, which is going to happen. But at least we're getting out of the death grip of the death grip of the blood drinkers and the cannibals, the ones that are truly, truly wicked. It's a very, very different game. So people are making the mistake of throwing Trump in with that same lot and saying it's six of one, half a dozen of the other, out of the frying pan, into the fire. No, it is not that. That's too easy to take that stance. Trump is a very, very good human, flawed human. He is, as my beloved brother, our Tennessee director, Ethan Lucas, who is also a podcaster and a very brilliant analyst of truth and disclosure and the status quo. The way he likens it is Donald Trump is not the salvation. He is not Jesus. He's not able to save or redeem us. He's not the Redeemer. He is the Moses archetype. He's Akhenaten. He's leading us to the promised land. And then he will bang his staff on the ground. He is Moses in that sense, a deeply flawed and pained individual, but a fantastical individual at the same time. So if you can start to see it archetypally in that way, I think it'll contextualize who and what Donald Trump is. He's leading us away from the kingdom of the devil, the blood-drinking, satanic checkerboard, into a new form of dominion, which is more connected to AI, crypto, and still control mechanisms, and still war powers to an extent presiding and prevailing, but they are not seeking the desecration of God's children, which is what the last Atlantean era, the last galactic sleep cycle era was headed up by serpentine elements, which absolutely were seeking the desecration of God's children and all the beauty of creation.
Wow, yeah, I'm really glad that this is coming from you. I actually got to meet Donald Trump. I got to shake his hand back in 2004. When I was doing real estate, obviously in New York, he was been the big real estate guy, and it was one of these conventions or whatever. So I got to shake his hand. I always say I didn't like the feeling, but then again, it was a convention. It was a little handshake. Who knows? So but I really appreciate you saying that, because a lot of people are torn. A lot of people that are seeing the lies, are seeing how much we have been bamboozled, played, for all these years and these decades, and this rotten system seems not to be changing. So just to kind of wrap up on Trump, how do you think, though, that the establishment, if you will, I always call them dynasties, call them sponsors, donors, whatever, how did some people say neocons, some say like liberals, how did they let him get into that kind of seat,
They
and
didn't.
who are some of his allies?
They didn't let him get anywhere. He's bombastic as hell, and he cajoled and coerced and bullied and brashed his way there. He saw a space. He made the move. Of course, he was primed. Certain very powerful elites who were patriots and military intelligence white hats, so to speak, again of the Luciferian and not the satanic milieu. They definitely would have circled around him and been happy to establish him and support him as the chosen icon, because that's written into his story. It's not happenstance that you become the most powerful individual on the surface of the earth. It's called destiny. It's something that's written into your genes. It's written into the fabric of your soul. So, it is light that brings us to where we are in this world. It is invisible forces that construe how we manifest and show up ultimately in our fate or in our destined line. And Donald Trump was not, knocked into power by a clutch of people. It was Donald Trump's power that led Donald Trump into the manifest realm and inhabiting this extraordinary archetypal position that he does. What to say? He's a 79 years old. He's doing a job which would kill a 39-year-old with stress and with anxiety and with the psychic attacks and the legal lawsuits and all of that stuff. It's a monstrous load. And I think it would behoove us to simply sit back and go, well, how would I fare under such circumstance? How would I fare? What would I do? The fact that he has single-handedly destroyed the liberal press is an unbelievable boon for humanity. It's an incredible act of godliness to have taken down a very, very old satanic and Saturnian technology, mainstream media. He's ended it, single-handedly ended it, by being such a point of contention and by playing that game the way he's played it, by calling it out in broad daylight, in pure truth, and relentlessly so. Very belligerent, very blunt, very unstatesmanlike, absolutely perfect in that sense.
Thank you for that. Other people that I have to hook you up with, and this will lead me into my next question. I don't know if you heard of the OpenAI whistleblower Suchir Balaji, a young man that unfortunately got killed. They staged it like a suicide. So his parents, they were on the podcast. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Balaji. They are out here fighting, and they're continuing the legacy of their son. Imagine they lost their son. They came from India. He's 26 years old.
Yeah.
This was their universe. And yet, they are these strong people. And thank you to Tucker Carlson that hosted them. Thank you to, PBD that hosted them. And again, they were here. They're dear friends. And when I was kind of watching, what you were doing on your tour, I was thinking to myself, like, they gotta link up, because there's a lot of, all you and the Suchir's parents are these, super strong individuals with a real cause, a real message. So maybe I can hook you guys up. That I think that would be amazing. So that's leading me to my next question. What do you think about AI? It's again one of these super controversial topics. People are torn apart. Again, I had Mr. and Mrs. Balaji warning about, let's say, copyright laws when it comes to AI, but for some reason they had to take out this kid, and he was one of the developers of modern AI, and he wanted to warn humanity about some of the unethical sides that which it's AI is going or being led in. So what does Sacha Stone say about AI, and should we be scared?
Prove to me that you are alive.